Some of my friends have asked me how I get the clean and crisp audio in my recordings, so I thought I'd take a little time here to share with you how I do that. I'll cover the process from start to finish, but only go into limited detail on the hardware and software setup, mainly because I'm not an expert in the tools that I use, and there are videos out there that do a much better job of that. So instead, I'll focus on some areas in the setup that you might find helpful in overcoming some of the challenges and gotchas that I faced, when trying to do this yourself. So with that, let me start by showing you my hardware setup. So my hardware setup is pretty simple. I have basically 5 components here. Through the computer, I have an audio interface connected through a USB port over here. Then to the audio interface, I have my instrument. I plug my guitar straight into the audio interface. I don't go through like an amplifier or any kind of effects or anything. All the effects are handled through the software on the computer. I have a pair of headphones in order to monitor my recordings, and then a video camera over on the side to videotape my performance. For my video camera, I really just use my cell phone. Yeah, that's it for hardware. For software, basically 2 main things. You need a digital audio workstation for being able to record your music, your material. It serves as a multi-track recording tool. I use Persona Studio One. That's what I'll be showing you. And then the other component of software that you need is a video editor. So I use DaVinci Resolve. So that's it for the extent of my hardware and software setup. Okay, so now that we've talked about the components involved in creating your content, let's talk about the steps. There's 5 basic steps. 1, you're going to upload or record your backing tracks in the DAW. 2, you're going to record your performance track in the DAW while taking a video. 3, you're going to mix down the audio that you recorded to an audio file, like say an MP3. 4, you're going to import that mixed down audio and the video you took with the camera into a video editor. And then you're going to synchronize those 2 files so that they're playing together. Once you've got that synchronized, you're going to render that synchronized audio-video mix down to another MP4. So that's essentially it. I'll go over each of those steps in detail now. So as I mentioned previously, the first step is to upload or record your backing tracks. In my case, I'm going to go ahead and just upload a backing track that I purchased off of YT Jam Tracks through bandcamp.com. When you purchase backing tracks, just make sure that you understand the licensing fees and some of the licensing restrictions. So with that, I have Studio One launched, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new song and upload the backing track. I'm going to create song, create an empty song. All right, then I'm going to create a track. It's not voice narration, I'm just going to call it backing track. And the type is going to be audio because I'm going to be uploading a WAV file. It's not going to be a MIDI instrument or anything like that. And then I'm going to hit OK. Okay, and then I'm going to go song, import file. And then I have my backing track stored that I downloaded in this directory here. So what I downloaded was a WAV format, so that's what you want to upload. Okay, and there you go. So that's all there is to it, to uploading a backing track. There's a lot of silent lead here. Maybe I'll just chop that off because we don't really need that. So I'm going to go ahead and just trim that guy with this little trimmer. Chop off about that much. All right. Go ahead and delete that and then shift this over so we don't have to wait so long for it to start. Anyway, that's it. That's the process for uploading your backing track. So we'll go on to the next step of recording your performance track. So now let me just show you my hardware setup in preparation for recording the actual performance track. So I have in the back of my audio interface my headphones plugged in there in the headphone jack. So that's going to be the output. And I've got the 2 monitor speakers plugged in as well, but you don't necessarily need monitoring speakers. You can just monitor everything through the headphones. But anyway, that's what those 2 cable connections are there. And then, of course, the USB interface over here is hooked up to the computer. So that's what I have in the back. Okay, so now in the front, I have my guitar plugged into the instrument line 1, and I have my input level set to about 3/4. You want to set your input level so that your input, goes into the yellow fairly frequently, and maybe occasionally into the red when you're strumming. So right now I'm just kind of strumming my open strings, and you can see. But if I hit a power chord or something, it might go into the red just a little bit, but you want to try to avoid going into the red too much. And then the mixer controls what you're actually monitoring, whether you're monitoring the raw input or the processed output. So I actually have it set all the way to the playback, where I'm listening to the post-processed audio. And that's what I really want to monitor. It's everything that's going through the DAW and being processed, and that's what I'm actually hearing through the headphones. In other words, it's going through the amplifier, the virtual amp basically, and all the effects. And so I've got it turned all the way up there on that playback mode where I'm monitoring the post-processed audio. I've got my main off here because I don't need to hear anything through the main monitors, and I've got my headphone setting to about half. So that's the output for my headphones. So that's how I have things set up for the hardware. And then we can move over here, and we can just take a quick look at where I essentially put my mobile phone camera. I just clip it right in here, and I have it pointing towards me sitting here and me sitting right there, and playing. So that's my setup. Now, when we're getting to record our lead or our performance track, we have to make sure that our latency is minimized, because we're recording in playback mode. In other words, what our headphones are listening to is going to be the fully post-processed signal. It's the signal that's going to be going through all the effects in your computer and in your DAW, the distortion, the amplification, the delay, EQ, that sort of thing. So since it's going through all that before it hits your headphones, there's going to be a little bit of latency. We want to minimize that. So what we do is you go into Start, and there's Configure Audio Device, Control Panel, and I've actually minimized the latency to 10 milliseconds. By default, it might be something, up here. I don't know. But I think it might have been 40. But anyway, you want to set your latency to as small as possible. 10 milliseconds is pretty tolerable. Close. And then you should be good to go. Okay, so now that we've addressed the latency issue, I'm ready to create my lead track, the actual track that I'm going to be performing over. So in order to do that, we go ahead and click Add Track. And we'll call it, I don't know, I'll call it lead guitar, whatever you want to call it. Again, it's going to be an audio track because we're going to be recording a waveform. And now, I'm going to enable the audio on it so you can hear they're playing now. And right now I don't have any effects on it. And notice that the input is set to input left by default, which corresponds to the input on the audio interface. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do, I want to pull in 3 effects. The first is going to be the amp simulator. So I'm going to go into Effects, and I have the Ampire amp modeler here. I'm going to pull that in. And by default, it's got this sort of a Marshall cabinet set up. There's all kinds of different options you can select. I kind of like this guy here. You can play around and look for the amp modeler that you want, but this is basically, this whole thing is Ampire. It's a component that comes with the PreSonus subscription, so you don't have to purchase it separately. And I usually bring up my preamp volume all the way, my master all the way, cut back the treble, bring up the bass, bring up the presence, and that alone gives you a good crunch. All right. So we'll leave that where it's set now. And now I'm going to go ahead and dismiss that. And now I'm going to drag in an analog delay to get some sort of the echo effect. And I usually have the dry wet combination, only just a little bit of delay in there, and I set the feedback, cut the feedback a little bit down about 15. Again, this is something you'll have to play around with to get the sound that you prefer, but this is about the setting that I like. All right, so we'll leave that where it is. And then finally, I like to add this Pro EQ, which is sort of it's a parameterized graphic equalizer, and I use this especially to cut back a lot of the raspiness from the crunch that I've got. Okay, so let's cut out a lot of that raspiness and give it a smoother tone. I like to bring up the mids, do a low cut, cut out all the boomy bottom bass stuff, and a high cut. And again, this is something you can play around with to get the ideal sound. But for now, we'll leave it about there. So the three things that I pulled in, it was that amp modeler, the Ampire, and I brought in the delay. Where'd that go? Yeah, the analog delay, and I brought in the Pro EQ. So those are the only three effects that I really use. Okay, so now we've got all right, having done that, I am now ready to try to record a track. So to record the track, what we do is I click on record right here, and then click record here, and off we go. enough of that. So let's shut that off. And now we'll go ahead and mix that guy down. So I got the 2 tracks recorded. We're going to mix that down. So to perform the mix down, what we need to do is set up 2 markers, the start and end marker for the mix down. Right here, you can say marker. And the start marker is already set to the beginning. And then the end marker is way out here. I don't want to record all that. So I'm going to move the end marker. Let me zoom out a bit here. Oops. Boy, this is a long backing track. Yeah, there we go. All right. So let's just cut it off here. And when I mix down, maybe I won't necessarily start at the right at the beginning. I don't know. Well, for this, we'll just go ahead and start it at the beginning. All right. So I've got my start and end marker, and now I go song, export mix down, and then you got to specify the directory where you're going to mix down to and the file name. I'll go ahead and call this deep melodic. I like to use underscores. I've never been an advocate of spaces in file names. I think it can create trouble, especially if you're if you have your files in like a Linux environment or Unix environment or something like that. Spaces are a problem. So I've always been in the habit of giving file names, omitting spaces in file names and just putting underscores or dashes in there. Anyway, deep melodic D minor. That's the name of my file. That's where I'm going to be exporting it to. Make sure it's an MP3 file. And it's already defaulted to between selected markers. And I'm going to hit OK. And now it's starting to export the file. Clipping has occurred. The signal was 3.10 dB over. Okay, so it clipped a little bit, which means in some area when I did the recording, it went into the red. Which means when you play it back, there might be some clicking and stuff going on there. But let's see. All right, well, good enough for the demo, right, for this demo. Wherever the clipping occurred, we'll just let it go for this demo. But ideally, if you got that notice that clipping occurred, that means you'd want to cut back your output a little bit. Cut back your output volume a little bit to make sure you don't hit the red. All right. So that's it for the mix down and creating the MP3 file, the MP3 audio file I talked about. So in the next step, what we're going to do is we're going to take this video that we just recorded and we're going to combine it with the audio that we mixed down. We're going to do that in the video editor. So that's essentially step 4 that I talked about. So what we just did was step 2 and step 3. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so the final step is to take the audio mixdown that we created and combine it with the video of my performance. And what we're going to do is we're going to sync up those two, the video and the audio, and then we're going to render that to a final MP4. Okay, so I have DaVinci Resolve open here, and I've already taken that video clip of my performance. If you recall, the video clip had a lot of leading content that, you know, described my hardware setup and all that. So I clipped away a lot of that, and I also clipped away a lot of the trailing video that doesn't include just the part that I performed. So really what's showing here is just the clip of my actual performance, with a little bit in the beginning and the end. I already have that as a track here in DaVinci Resolve. Now I have the audio track here, which I'm going to drag down and have it as a separate track. Now what you're going to find is they're not really synced up right now. Record here and off we go. You can see that the audio started a lot sooner than the video. So what I have to do is click and drag the audio so it's synced up. So that's a matter of taking this and dragging it to where you find the audio actually matches up, and you sort of have to play around. The music actually starts, I think, right around here. Let me see. That's not a good place to be able to tell if you're really synced up, but if you look at where I start to show my fingers actually moving. Okay, right about here. And then I'm going to mute the video and then just have the audio play. Okay. Now video came in a little bit early. Okay, so now we're pretty well synced up. All right. So now I've got the audio and video synced up. Took a little work, but again, the idea of syncing up the audio and video is a matter of clicking and dragging that audio track around and looking at the video and just kind of visually match things up. Okay, so now that we're synced up, we're going to select where we want to export the video. So we set the marker. Well, that'd be a good place to start, is where the audio starts. So I'm going to mark the end point, the start point of the actual rendering of the video right there. And then the end point, we will go over. Let's see if that's a good place to stop. All right. We'll let the end point just be where the audio track ends. So we'll go mark out. All right. So now what we're going to do is to render that output. So we're going to add this to the rendering queue. So we go over to this rendering tool here. And we want to give it a file name, awesome D minor song. And you want to select where you're going to output it to. Okay, I've got it as an MOV file, which I don't want. I actually want it as an MP4. So I need to change that format to an MP4. And then we'll browse to that same location again. Well, it doesn't really matter where we put it. Let's just put it on. Yeah, we'll just put it under this PC videos. Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and add that to the render queue. We want the format. This resolution is the compatible resolution for most videos and for a YouTube upload. So we'll go ahead and add that to the render queue, and now I'll click Render All. Okay, job completed. So now we will minimize that, and I'll go into that folder where it created the video. I believe that was videos, wasn't it? Yeah, awesome D minor song. Okay. Okay, so now we have the final video performance here. Okay, let me fast forward a little bit. Okay, so there you go. We have the final product. Okay, so that wraps up step 4 and 5 that I described. Syncing up the video in the video editing tool, DaVinci Resolve, and rendering it to a final video.